I want to talk to you tonight about the grace of God. And so just to begin with, I want you to open your Bibles to John chapter 1, verse 17. Tonight will not be what you might call a classic Bible study, even though we're going to take a look at several biblical texts. But the verse I want to begin with here is in John chapter 1, verse 17. And we're going to be taking a look at a few New Testament passages about the grace of God. And more than a classical Bible study this evening, what we're going to be doing is what you might call, as in some circles it's called, a word study. We're going to take a close look at this word grace in the New Testament. Because I suppose I should explain just a little bit how I came to write this book and to have my heart and mind filled with these things. I cannot say I really remember the circumstances exactly, but it was when I was a young man, in my young 20s, I was a pastor already. For whatever reason, I just got very interested in the subject of the grace of God. And my mind just started becoming captivated by it. And what I did was I started looking through the Scriptures, every place in the New Testament where it mentioned the word grace. Or actually, as we'll see in just a moment, the ancient Greek word charis, which is translated grace. I wanted to understand that word and what it meant in the context and what the message of the New Testament, speaking about grace, what it was for me. And I have to tell you, I'm not a man given to exaggeration. I have to say, my time studying the New Testament idea of grace was life transforming. It changed my conception about who God is, about who I am, and about how living my Christian life is conducted. And it so impressed me that I poured out much of what's in that book that you read today. It was just poured into me through a very diligent study of this idea of grace. And you can see just from this one verse that I'm going to quote to you right now, John chapter 1, verse 17, where it says this: "For the law was given through Moses, grace and truth came through Jesus Christ." Isn't that a marvelously majestic statement? It's as if the Apostle John, of course speaking by the inspiration of the Spirit, looks off across the panorama of God's redemptive history, and he sees how Moses was that great redemptive figure, in a lesser sense of course, but the great redemptive figure of the Old Testament, right? He's the one who led the deliverance out of Egypt and into the promised land. It says the law came by Moses. But Jesus of Nazareth, the Messiah of Israel and our Messiah, what had came by him? Grace, he says, and truth. It was passages like this upon my deeper meditation that just began to sink into my heart, sink into my mind, and make me realize there is something vitally important to my study of grace. Now, in the midst of these years, I was pastoring at the time as a young man, pastoring a small church and ministering unto people. And a lot of times I would love just to go into libraries and study. I mean, I don't know about you, but I love libraries. I love just walking into libraries and being in the presence of a lot of books. I just love it. And I love looking through the periodicals, all the magazines and such. And I remember one time being in a library and just sort of strolling by the periodicals and looking at the different things. I mean, it just fascinates me, all the different subjects that people are interested in. And I saw this one magazine, one that I would normally never pick up and look at. It was titled The Humanist. I'm not typically given to studying humanist magazine. There would be of an anti-Christian bent. Nevertheless, the title of an article on the front of The Humanist caught my eye. Cover article. Here it was. Christianity and Mental Health. That caught my eye. I don't know about you, but it really interested me. I said, I've got to read what this author in the magazine The Humanist says about Christianity and mental health. And the author of the article was a man named Wendell Waters. He had worked as a psychiatrist for 25 years. And he stated the main idea of his article in this paragraph: "I want you to entertain the hypothesis that Christian doctrine, the existential soother par excellence, is incompatible with the principles of sound mental health and contributes more to the genesis of human suffering than to its alleviation." You've got to admit, that's quite a severe charge, isn't it? He's saying that Christianity has made the world worse rather than better. Christianity has made individuals worse rather than better. But then in another place, he wrote this. He said, a true Christian must always be in a state of torment, since he or she can never really be certain that God has forgiven him or her for deeply felt negative feelings, in spite of the Catholic confessional and the fundamentalist trick of self-deception known as being saved or born again. Now, you know what occurred to me as I read this? Now, obviously, I didn't agree with the article. Obviously, I didn't agree with the press. Obviously, I instantly thought I would love to debate this man. But I tell you, the number one thought that came into my mind as I read this article, as I read a paragraph such as that, I said, he's right. At least, he's right regarding the lives of many Christians I know. I know Christians who live in this state of continual torment. That they really almost feel that God is the one holding a daisy in heaven, right? I love them not. I love them not. They're constantly measuring the love of God, the approval of God, the acceptance of God, based on the idea of how they're doing and their own performance. They deeply inside, they know, they sense that they are not worthy of the love of God. And therefore, they spend a great deal of their Christian life trying to prove themselves worthy of God's love, yet never feeling that they ever match the goal. This fellow, Wendell Waters, described how the Christian life is actually experienced for many people. He didn't describe biblical Christianity at all, but against Christianity as many people have experienced. I would say that he described a graceless Christianity. As I want you to get grace. We talk about somebody getting something. And a lot of people don't get something in a couple different senses. First of all, some people don't get something in the way we talk about it, in the sense that they don't understand it. You know, he just doesn't get it, right? We talk about that sometimes. A person doesn't understand it. They don't comprehend it. And that's a problem with many people about the grace of God. They don't understand the fundamental doctrines of it. But there's another sense in which we could use that idea of getting something. It's to actually receive it, right? Somebody can get something in the sense of having it in their hand and actually receiving it to themselves. I want both of those for you. Don't forget this man's testimony. This is what he said. Because I heard him share this at a conference once. He said, I don't remember my conversion experience. He said, I was saved when I was a very little boy. And so, he was saved, so to speak, right out of the sandbox, And so he didn't have a dramatic, I gave up drinking, I gave up, drug abuse, I gave up this or that. He was saved as a very, very young child. So he didn't even remember his conversion experience, though he had no doubt that he was converted. But he said this, I don't remember my conversion experience, but I will never forget my grace experience. What did he mean by that? He meant that there was a point, there was a time in his Christian life when he got it about grace. When it wasn't just a word in the Bible, when it wasn't just a concept that's out there, but it was actually something very meaningful to his life. And I would say that I got grace at a certain time in my Christian life. And not that the grace wasn't held out to me by God before. No, I think it's held out to each one of us all the time. I think we need to comprehend it, and we need to receive it.